Welcome back to Brazil Crypto Report. Today we're joined by Marcos Viriato, CEO of Parfin, which is one of Brazil's leading blockchain infrastructure providers. We talk about Parfin's origin story, business model, and participation in the Drex pilot program. Great. So we're here today with Marcos Viriato of Parfin. Great to have you on the show, Marcos.
Hi, Aaron. Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. We've been talking, for a long time, and then now it's a great opportunity to be here and share our thoughts with your audience.
Amazing. Glad we could finally make it happen. So to get started, why don't you give us a bit of background on yourself and how you got into Bitcoin and crypto?
Yeah, well, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Parfin. I have like 20 plus years of traditional financial market experience. Majority of this, I was a MD partner of BTG Pactual, which is one of the largest investment bank in Latin America. I ran operations technology globally, so we did a bunch of stuff related to obviously traditional financial markets. At certain point, I was always looking for innovation, what's going on, and I found out about Bitcoin a while back, like 2014, and I bought my first Bitcoins at like around $600. And after that, I read the Satoshi white paper, and I said, "Oh my God, this technology is amazing! It's gonna transform the financial markets as we know. I need to do something in the space." So that's how everything started. And later, BTG started trading crypto, and there's the token issuance, right? BZ, which was an asset, was one of the first STOs done by a bank. And so with that, I said, listen, this is gonna again, be something unique for the future. I need to be involved. So when I left the bank in 2019, we decided to start Parfin because we realized there was lack of infrastructure for institutional clients, and that's where everything started. So now we are here, and I think that helped a lot also because we saw, once Ethereum was launched in 2016, and then the whole ICO movement on 2017, and the ICO was to me the proof that blockchain would work for financial markets, despite the fact that most of the ICOs were tokens without anything backing them. But the technology proved to work in a big global decentralized distribution of assets, people buying and selling and trading tokens all over that would represent real world assets. So that to me was the trigger that I said, wow, this is going to happen one day, so we need to build infrastructure.
Yeah, absolutely. And as much maybe bad press as the ICO era gets at this stage in the game, there was a lot of real innovation that happened there, and a lot of just things that we've never witnessed before at that level of scale, right? The ability to just crowdfund a massive amount of money from just random, like anonymous people from around the world, people trading these things, even if granted they didn't really have any value, or the value proposition was a bit lacking, but just the fact that this was even doable is innovative in itself, right? And I would love to talk a bit more about kind of your journey into Parfin, and I do find it kind of interesting that there's this, in tech we talk about like the PayPal mafia, and crypto there's the Coinbase mafia, and I feel like at BTG there's kind of this like BTG mafia of people who have left BTG to go start their own things, in crypto. But maybe talk a bit about Parfin, like what's the origin story, who are your co-founders, what's the thesis behind it? And we can kind of dive into some of your your products and services as well in a bit.
Cool. Yeah. Well, originally, and that's the beauty of any startup. You have the flexibility to pivot and change the route you're going, because the market sometimes is very dynamic, especially on the blockchain crypto ecosystem. So initially, when I left BTG, I had invested in few startups and companies, and one of them was Parfin, actually. And the idea behind Parfin back there was to launch a regulated stablecoin in UK. And I was living in London at that time, and Christian Bond, which is one of the co-founders, had the idea to, why not, launch a stablecoin. At the time, you only had Tether, which had like $15 billion of market cap. It was really tiny. It was no, even less. The total market cap of stablecoins were $15 billion. So there's Tether, I think, was 8, 9, and there's the Paxos dollar, and USDC was at the very, very beginning. And our views was like, well, if we build something that we could prove reserves online instantaneously, that would be great for the means of payment, right? Really using a stable coin for means of payment to gain efficiency. So we started Parfin, but when I invested, I said, guys, okay, the stable coin is great, but you need infrastructure. Otherwise, people won't use it. You need a wallet system. You need ways to control it, right? To custody, especially for banks. And the idea is that, okay, let's build, let's do the stable coin, but also build an infrastructure. So a few months later, when the project started, I left BTG, and then I said, guys, I'm going to help you guys with this to run the company. And in parallel, Facebook announced the Libra, and at that time, all the regulators around the world said, oh, you cannot do this. You need to be regulated. So there was a lot of scrutiny on Facebook and from regulators all over the world. Then we look back and say, guys, if Facebook is facing such a tremendous scrutiny from regulators to launch their stablecoin, what about us? We're going to launch this stablecoin. Let's forget about it. So we gave up the idea of our stablecoin, which at that time was going to be called Parcoin. We gave up, and then we said, okay, let's keep building the infrastructure. So our first product was what we call Parfin Terminal, which is an analogy of Bloomberg Terminal, where the idea was, you need to manage your crypto, your digital assets. So you need a portfolio, you need to consolidate your positions. And at that time, people were trading crypto in different exchanges, especially institutional investors, funds, trading desks, etc. So we built that tool where we connect to multiple exchanges, we consolidate the positions in one single view, and you can track it, you can move crypto from exchange A to B to the internal custody. At that time, we were using Curve as our MPC solution. Curve was this Israeli firm that was later bought by PayPal. And then that was another thing. We decided to build our own MPC. So we started with Parfin Terminal. We got some clients. And it was funny because we started building it in February 2020. And then all of a sudden, the pandemic came, right? And then the market collapsed. Bitcoin reached $3,000 for those who remember. It was a good entry point, actually. But the world would fall apart, and we didn't give up. We continued to build. So later in 2020, we had our first product, live, and we got like few clients, most asset managers, and that helped us a lot because we opened our eyes to continue building technology. And at the end of the day, one of our clients, they said, well, can you build me a more sort of a sales side tool? We say, well, yes, we can. So we built our second product, which was the crypto as a service. And the crypto as a service basically is a brokerage tool where if you're a neobank, an investment platform, and you want to offer crypto to your end clients, just build your buy and sell screen, connect to our APIs, and there's a whole sophistication to manage it. You can define spread per currency, per client. You can give limits, and there's this smart order routing tool where you can execute on the best price on the connected exchange. So that gives a lot of flexibility for the clients to manage their crypto ecosystem. And the combination of the two, the terminal and the crypto as a service, is very powerful because you have an end-to-end solution. So you can manage it, the entire life cycle from your prop trading. You can create your own pricing engine. So it's ends up being sophisticated. So then we got big clients like the Brazilian Stock Exchange uses our crypto as a service to offer crypto as a service to the market. We have XP. We have like around 20 clients today using a lot of those institutional clients, and there are more coming. There's more coming. And for us, I think 2022 was the year where we I don't like to call it crypto winter, but it's a down market, right? Crypto has been like this. It's like it happens in waves. It's a roller coaster, and we're in the bottom of a cycle now. And for us was positive because despite of the market has bottomed, we grew our revenue, we grew our client base. So it was a good momentum. And again, I think a lot of clients, especially the institutional ones, after the FTX collapsed, they realized that they would need to have more control over their crypto, their infrastructure, etc. And that's where we are, because we provide the technology and they can manage their own. They can really control the end-to-end. And then in parallel, again, coming from traditional financial markets, but loving crypto, our view back there, remember, was like, the financial markets, as we know, would convert to blockchain rails, would use blockchain for gains of efficiency, etc. And especially in Brazil, I think we're living a very good momentum. So last year, one of our clients on the crypto space, which is Vortex, entered into the sandbox of the Securities Commission of Brazil, CVM, and they were using our infrastructure, and they tokenized the first ever security in Brazil, which is a debenture, it's a corporate bond. It was very, very exciting because we worked together with them to put together the solution, and then the very, very first securities tokenization happened, and we were part of it. In parallel, last year, the central bank also started the sandbox, the Lift Challenge, which was a sort of sandbox for the CBDC to learn more about what would be done, etc. And so 9 banks were selected. One of them was Santander, and Santander hired us, and we built the whole infrastructure around this sandbox. And that was really good because it was super complementary. In one hand, we were doing the sandbox for the Securities Commission of Brazil with one of our clients on security tokens, and on the other hand, the Central Bank of Brazil starting the sandbox for the CBDC. So which were very complementary. And and our view was quite funny because we see the crypto space as an innovation lab. Everything is happening there. The innovation is happening there. DeFi, lending pools, liquidity pools, automated market makers. So there's a lot of innovation. So what we do, knowing both sides, we learn a lot. We implement this technology on the crypto side, and then we port it over for the more traditional finance way to gain to gain efficiency, to gain innovation. So that's it's part of our job, to use the innovation and the cutting edge technology that's happening to crypto and port it over to the traditional financial markets.
Great. Yeah. So just to kind of summarize here, so basically you guys have a variety of different tools and products available, from a terminal to a crypto as a service to an MPC custody. You even have your own chain now, which I want to ask a bit more about a little bit later. And you're kind of offering really the whole kind of gamut of services to various institutions, everything from it sounds like you can either an institution could use kind of the entire product offering, or they could kind of pick and choose, like, oh, I just want custody, or I just want asset tokenization, or I just want whatever. They can kind of pick and choose a la carte essentially, but you guys are offering really the whole sort of the whole breadth of options of different products that a financial institution like this would potentially be interested in. And you covered a bunch of different points that I'd like to double click on over the rest of this conversation. I think before we dive into that, I wanted to just mention, you guys raised a round at the beginning of this year, or you closed a round, or it was at least announced at the beginning of this year in January, 15 million, and I believe it was a seed round. And kind of to your point about how 2022 is a bit of a down year for the market, but for you guys to come out and raise 15 million, in a seed round was certainly noteworthy. Was just hoping you give a bit more color on that round, and I also know that Framework Ventures was the lead investor in that, which is, I think, notably it's like a North American investor, like pretty big, North American crypto VC, and at least from my vantage point, it doesn't seem very common for these types of VCs to be writing big checks to companies, at least in the the LATAM Brazil region. So just hoping you give it more color on like what's that relationship like why did they take an interest in you guys, and over to you.
Well, that was last year was a very a big challenging year for startups. A lot of good companies with good products died because lack of funding, and we were at the limit, or we had like a few months of runway, but despite of all this turmoil in the markets, again, VCs were putting not investing much from summer last year to the end of the year. In parallel, in the crypto space, you had the collapse of True Arrow Capital, FTX, and the whole confusion that happened in the ecosystem. Therefore, we had our view that financial markets would convert to crypto. We were very well positioned, not only with so important big clients, institutional clients, but also in terms of technology. Our view, and that was money is important for a startup, but the alignment of our strategy for the future. So we saw that the institutional adoption of crypto or blockchain would happen through permission networks. So, and that was triggered the last year, at the very beginning of last year, AV, which is a lending DeFi protocol, launched ARC. That was the first one, and it shocked a little bit the crypto ecosystem, because why you're doing a version of your lending pool in a permissioned way, where people would be KYC'd, know your customer, because they realized that for institutional adoption, you need to know you don't need to know who you're trading directly with, but you need to know that they've been validated by some trusted counterparties. Why? Because you don't want to get involved into a lending pool where there could be money laundering activity or so on. So our view was pretty much the same. We said, okay, we believe that the institutional adoption will happen through permission networks. So in that regard, what we did, the combination of our products, terminal, etc., would allow the operational element of getting to permission networks. But we said we need to build a permission network. So that's how we came with the idea of building Parchain. And Parchain is a EVM compatible blockchain. Actually, there's few components of Parchain. One is a private ledger, which is effective. It was a fork of Geth, which is one of the Ethereum clients, and we changed a little bit the consensus mechanism. We built the other component of Parchain is a bridge system, which would allow you to the interoperability between public and permission blockchains, as well as within the permission blockchain interoperability of tokens. And that's, again, when we built that, our view is that in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, there will be specific purpose networks or blockchain, permission blockchains that would run, maybe a network for auto tokens, a network for financial instrument tokens, some networks for CBDCs, and that would require this infrastructure. So when we had this view, and we presented this to Framework, and Framework Ventures, they had invested in Polygon, in many like DeFi tokens and companies, and their view was pretty much the same as ours, where the institutional adoption would happen through permission networks or permission technology, and then the first time we met, they said, wow, you guys are building something, you have already a client base on your crypto offering. You are building something that we truly believe that will be the next generation of institutional adoption for crypto, which is this permission networks and solutions. So then that was the perfect alignment, despite again of this not good momentum in crypto. And then after when you're a startup and you find a leader to your round, then it becomes easier, because there will be always followers and investors that would trust. But Framework, is fantastic. They have a very clear view. They have analyzed hundreds and thousands of DeFi tokens and protocols. They are very technical, very, very technical. I remember the first time we had a conversation, they said, well, how do you do that? How do that? So they went really deep into the technical elements of what we're building. And we like a lot, to be challenged. And so that's how we built, this round, again, despite of the not a good momentum in the markets. And we're keeping delivering. We're building. It's been quite exciting, because when we look the solutions we're building, we could help the privacy of central bank digital currency. We could help on many different cases. And again, it's I think, because sometimes you build a technology, you could be ahead of the market, and then no one uses it. Right, that's the challenge of any startup. So you're so forward thinking that you can build something that no one is using, because the market's not prepared for using that. Or but then if you start building later, maybe you lose the momentum, right? Because there are other people using it. So in our view, we believe that we had this view that the permission would happen, and so we start building the technology, not very ahead of the market. So I would say that we're going hand to head with the market, the demand for this. So maturity of crypto in Brazil is getting better and better. Regulation is favorable. Then the maturity of the security tokens, the tokenization and CBDC is getting there, and our technology is pretty much ready to support all this ecosystem. So that helps a lot as well, right? For when you're a startup. So you can have a super good product, but the market doesn't demand it, or you're late in the game, because once you build it, the market's further ahead. So I think we've been quite lucky into this momentum of the market.
Yeah, it does seem like you are pretty well positioned at this point in time with the solutions you're bringing to the market, and how those match up with the overall zeitgeist of the market right now, where a lot of the fluff from 2021 has been flushed away. Like NFT market is essentially gone. It's looking now that unregulated DeFi. I mean, just looking at some of the news coming out of the U.S. in the last couple of weeks, like the future of unregulated DeFi is very much in question of what this is even going to look like. At least in the U.S. anyway. And what you guys are offering is something that will be much more palatable toward that kind of that sweet spot of the TradFi audience that's looking to get in this new asset class in a way that doesn't pose immense career risk, essentially, I suppose. Would love to dive into a couple topics you alluded to earlier with regards to your work with the CVM sandbox as well as the central bank. There's a variety of programs you guys have been. I know you're pretty close to the central bank folks. You guys have been involved in, like the Lift Challenge, also in the Drex pilot now. We can get into that a bit later. But would love to hear a bit more about, in particular, the Santander project that you had mentioned earlier, as well as the tokenization project that you're working with in the CVM sandbox.
Yeah. Let's start with the Santander case. So Santander, last year, the Central Bank of Brazil started this. It's called sandbox lift challenge, and their idea was to explore like 4 different business cases. One is deliver versus payment using CBDC. The other one is payment to payment to convert real digital with something else, dollar, whatever it is. Then the third case would be DeFi. So how to use a CBDC and interact with the DeFi protocol. And the fourth business case proposed by the central bank was IoT, so Internet of Things. Things like, well, how could I program a smart contract that would receive an input from your fridge to buy more food, and that would pay for the food automatically, something around those lines. And so all those participants suggested. Santander proposed deliver versus payment, and the business case was the tokenization of cars, autos, and real estate. And we built a smart contract, the deliver versus payment smart contract, to instantaneously exchange the car, the token of the car, and the real estate versus the CBDC. And the purpose of that was to solve, a C2C problem, right? Whereas if you are selling a car, do you transfer the title of the car and then receive the money, or you pay, then you receive the title of the car? And there was a lot of fraud in the market. There's a lot of inefficiencies. So the idea was that, well, once you tokenize the title of the car, and the seller wants to sell it, when they put into the market, effectively the token of the car leaves the wallet of the client, of the seller, and goes to a smart contract where it stays. It's like pretty much like a escrow account, right? So the token of the car gets into the smart contract, deliver versus payment smart contract, and then once the buyer says, I want to buy it, so the CBDC or the equivalent moves out of the buyer's wallet into the smart contract, and then the exchange of these 2 tokens happen. And that's the beauty, because it's all programmable. You don't need to have anyone interacting with this. So we did this in a very, let's say, closed loop, because you wouldn't involve at this first moment the car register agencies, the trans in Brazil, and any other external participant. But that proved that the technology would help and would facilitate such a transaction. So that was what we have done with Santander. I think Santander was the first one, because when we started the project April last year, it was a 3 months sandbox, but then the central bank postponed for like 6 months. But we agree. Santander said, "Oh, let's not stop the project despite of this delay. Let's continue." So we were one of the first to deliver, and was really good, because it helped us to test other scenarios, including the interoperability. So at that time we used the very first version of Parfin was Hyperledger Bezel. And that was funny, because later, right, the Central Bank of Brazil decided to use Hyperledger Bezel for the pilot now of the CBDC. And we tested, Aaron, we tested the Hyperledger Bezel as the first version of Parfin, and we changed the consensus algorithm. We changed a little bit the database. So we tested at that time at the Lift Challenge, running the network with 4 nodes, 8 nodes, 16 nodes, 32 nodes, and we tested high processing machines, servers to run the nodes for throughput and so on. So we did a bunch of good analysis to see if the blockchain would support high level, high volume transactions, similar to what happened with peaks today, right? You reached some at certain points of the day, 10,000 transactions per second, 9,000 transactions per second. So that's what you would expect with the blockchain in the future, right? To support a lot of transactions. So that was quite exciting. It was a learning curve for us, and again, I think the solution was quite interesting. So then the sandbox for the security token with CVM and Vortex QR tokenizadora, it was a little bit different because it was more stable, but we understood some requirements from the Securities Commission of Brazil, especially to have the wallets of the investors that would buy the securities segregated, so you couldn't use omnibus wallets for the distribution. The secondary market and the issues should happen in a deliver versus payment basis, so you don't run the central clearing counterpart risk. So there are a lot of elements that were analyzed and discussed to bring again efficiency to the market. And I think the sandbox is still ongoing, and the CVM, especially with the new president João Pedro, it's pretty much aligned and is very aware of the capabilities of the blockchain to disrupt this securities space. And I think they have a very clear view of what needs to be done to regulate and to create the ecosystem for security tokens. Again, all those tasks were very I think fruitful in terms of bringing clarity of what's the role of the custodian in the crypto space versus the role of the custodian in the traditional markets, right? Because there are some differences and nuances in between the two. And what's the role of the tokenizadora, what would be a regulated entity, which would combine the registered agent and the central clearing counterpart into one entity. So there are differences in between the way the traditional financial market works and the way this new the new way that the security tokens would work. So that was fascinating because we could do a front-to mapping on how it works today, how it will work in the future, the gaps in regulation, because there will be requirement adjustments to the regulation as well. So I think that's very it was very interesting to be part of those discussions and to be part of this the construction of this new framework, especially in Brazil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the more intriguing things about the Brazil market right now is the development of kind of the asset tokenization space, especially with the CVMs kind of taking a leadership role and taking a forward-looking view on the technology and just kind of where things need to go at this point in time. I want to turn back to the central bank and the digital real / Drex pilot program that you guys are you're in one of the consortia that was selected to participate. There's 16 consortia. You're at least in one. I mean, I'm having trouble keeping track of who's in what consortia now, but you're at least in one of them. So would love to just learn a bit more about like how has this been, what's this experience been like thus far, and what are you? I mean, I realize it's still kind of in the early stages here of just trying to get nodes fired up on the network and whatnot. But what's this experience been like thus far, and any initial reactions just from the experience thus far?
Yeah, well, I think the central bank, is doing a great job in terms of putting together the pilot and giving a clear guidelines and bringing the market to contribute. I think this is, to me, is sort of unique. You don't see it in many countries around the world, right? This interaction between the let's call public sector and private sector, where everyone is with the same focus and energy to deliver something great. And I think Brazil has this atmosphere, but that's pretty much driven by the Central Bank of Brazil. So the pilot has few phases. So this first phase was the setup of the network nodes. So each one of the consortiums would run a node. Central Bank is running 6. The Treasury of Brazil is running 4. And there will be 16 others running by the consortiums or banks. We are officially in one of the consortiums with TechBan and Baza, which is the bank of Amazon. Then we're also supporting other 4 consortiums. Some are public, the Banco BV, and where we are providing infrastructure. So there are different business cases. Each one of those 16 participants are looking for. So some banks, they are looking for the entire life cycle. What I mean by this, the central bank has proposed some sort of complex use case where it's for the pilot, which is client of bank A selling a tokenized government bond for a client of bank B. Is a sort of a peer-to-peer transaction, therefore using the bank's infrastructure to run it. And you would involve the tokenized deposit. It would involve the smart contract for delivery as payment. It would involve the wholesale CBDC or the Drex, right, or the Real Digital, and into this whole process. So it's a very complex. It's a complex scenario because it in the world of CBDCs, central banks choose between developing the retail CBDC or the wholesale CBDC. So wholesale CBDC would be more used for interbanking transaction or cross-border payments, and then the retail CBDC more for the domestic markets payments and so on. And some central banks say, "Oh, I'm gonna only do wholesale." The others retail. And the most complex CBDC projects involve both, right? Retail and wholesale. In Brazil, you have Drex. It's an ecosystem, right? Drex is the wholesale, which is the Real Digital, the token that's issued by the central bank for interbank settlement. And you don't call retail, but it's the tokenized deposit, which is a bank's deposit, which is similar to what people consider to be the retail CBDC, and those interacting to buy a government bond in a peer-to-peer transaction. So out of the 16 participants, there are consortiums that will only be able to test the retail CBDC or the tokenized deposit, because they don't sell government bonds to their end clients. So there are others, that will be able to test the wholesale CBDC, because there will be a payment between a bank, financial institution 1 to 2. And again, there are banks that offer for their end clients government bonds, so they would be able to test the whole life cycle, the tokenized deposit, the wholesale CBDC, and the buy and sell of government bonds. So I think this first phase was the implementation of the nodes. Some of the smart contracts are available for the wholesale and the retail CBDC. The wholesale, I mean the Real Digital CBDC, and the tokenized deposit for banks. I think there will be a lot of tests of interoperability, of settlement, the delivery versus payment, and that will start, in the coming weeks. I think some banks are already testing the smart contracts for the wholesale and the retail. Some even did transfers in between accounts. And again, it's just the beginning. And the central bank will also start analyzing the privacy solutions in the market. So let's see.
Yeah, definitely a lot going on there. I appreciate the color as well. It's helpful to have somebody who's really kind of intimately, familiar with these workings on the inside and understanding the different kind of nuances of each of the consortia. And so I appreciate your viewpoint there. And I want to get your take here on just the, what is the kind of this Drex ecosystem like mean for maybe the broader crypto ecosystem in general? There's a lot of people in crypto who may not when it comes to CBDCs, they either, they're either just like sort of dismissive of it for philosophical reasons, or they just think it's like a totally different technological thing. It's like, oh, it's a permissioned chain, government money, whatever. This is like, we're in crypto, not government money. And I would like your take on like, why is what's happening in the Drex ecosystem here like bullish for crypto digital assets more generally?
Well, first of all, I think one of the biggest frictions that happen into the crypto markets is the on-off ramp process to buy crypto, right? So you need to send fiat, normal dollars, reais, whatever, to an exchange and convert it into crypto. So this on-off ramp has been a problem all over the world since the beginning. I remember at the beginning, no banks would provide banking accounts for crypto exchange counterparties, etc. And after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and Silvergate, and people realized that this problem has not been solved. Still, there's friction. Still, there's problems, which certain elements restrict people to buy and sell more crypto. So my view is that when you have the CBDC, you're saying that your money now is tokenized, and the way you can exchange with crypto is seamlessly. They are in the same rails. They're in the same level of interaction. So to me, I think that will boost that's the first step to boost even further crypto. The second thing, which I mentioned, I truly believe that some of the crypto solutions, especially some DeFi protocols, lending pools, automated market makers, will be used to boost, with the usage of CBDC to boost innovation into the traditional markets. Like, for instance, I want to, finance my car, and today I need to go to a bank. Well, if I have my car tokenized and I can lend it out into a DeFi protocol permission, there are people willing to lend me money, and that's innovation. So I truly believe that, and that will boost some of those DeFi crypto ecosystem, because that technology is working there. But once they are used for the purpose of getting to their day-to-day lives of people, wow, this is fantastic, right? Because today the crypto people that use AV or Compound or those lending pools, you can borrow money, but you deposit the collateral, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and you borrow USDC. So you are in a closer loop. You can use only crypto to do that. But in the future, with the CBDCs, you can have the same thing to borrow money against your house, against your car, against the tokenized car, and so on. So that's for me will be the second wave of crypto solutions adoption into the traditional markets. So first, to start with the CBDC, which will on the crypto ecosystem for me will take the friction of on-off ramp. Then once this friction is gone, you're going to have the adoption of crypto DeFi protocols for your day-to-day life on the tokenization of real-world assets. I think that's again, it would be a natural evolution to me on the ecosystem.
And it does feel like that kind of ties back to our earlier conversation about kind of the future of unregulated DeFi, right? If this landscape does get murkier, just from a regulatory perspective, the Aves and the compounds and all these guys are going to be looking for new places to be able to run their smart contracts in a way that's less risky, or that there's more adoption, there's more users that are willing to take these risks, et cetera. And it even seems like in a situation or in a framework like the Drex framework, where each bank essentially in the financial system is responsible for issuing their own stable coins against these tokenized bank deposits, there would need to be some sort of curve type of mechanism for almost like ensuring parity between all these stable coins, right? So if like the Banco do Brasil stable coin needs to be trading at parity to the Banco BV stable coin, et cetera, there need to be some kind of mechanism for allowing, basically swapping these coins or these tokenized, I think it's real tokenizado, I think is what they're calling these, but like the tokenized coins that the banks are issuing, there need to be some kind of, so there is a place for these. The point of it I'm trying to make is that there's a place for a lot of these smart contracts and these protocols that have been built in kind of Wild West DeFi. There's a place for these things in kind of the the regulated DeFi or the regulated digital asset ecosystem, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, even if you look back on the sandbox of the central bank last year, the Leaf Challenge, one of the chosen participants was AV. And the idea is that AV would deploy a lending pool in a permissioned way. So imagine a central bank selecting one participant, which is a pure DeFi player. That's very innovative, right? And again, I think that's the direction that the central bank, both the central bank and the Securities Commission of Brazil, is pushing the market. Say, hey, open your eyes. There will be a new infrastructure to be created. We still don't know exactly how this would work, but we're testing it. We're effectively, seeing and learning how to apply this to as a new financial markets infrastructure. So that's the beauty of what's happening in Brazil. It's I think both for Roberto Campos and from the governor of Central Bank of Brazil, and João Pedro, the president of the Securities Commission, are super open-minded. They're pushing the markets, and also the technical teams of both, the central bank and CVM. They're super good. They understand. They're testing. They're learning. And again, they're pushing the markets. I think this is a perfect combination, and to be proud, we as Brazilians to be proud of, because we have a good momentum in the markets.
Absolutely. And just a couple questions to wrap up here. I know your main focus is on the Brazil market specifically. Most of your main clients are in the Brazil market, but you guys have done a pretty good job of having, kind of an international presence as well. I've seen you. I think we met in person for the first time at Consensus a couple of years ago in Austin. So I'm just kind of curious as to how you're positioning Parfin as kind of an international brand and not just one that's maybe localized to Brazil. So I'd love your thoughts on that, and then what maybe just to kind of wrap up, like any kind of final thoughts you might have on the state of the market right now. Obviously, it's not an amazing time to be in crypto, but like from conversations you're having from your vantage point, like what are your reasons for optimism? Like what are you getting excited about right now?
So I think I was in the US 2 weeks ago, and I visited some the large banks in the US, and I think they're sort of switching their gears towards tokenization, and SEC is really pushing this. See Franklin Templeton tokenized money market funds, And they are even using this for means of payment, because a money market fund, different from a stable coin, pays interest, right? And this is quite interesting. And it's called Benji. So Benji is a regulated, security token, which is a money market fund quota. They've been tokenizing, and all those large banks are looking to gain efficiencies using the blockchain for the tokenization of especially funds. I think the way in US, especially, that will happen initially with, in my view, with money market funds, and then there will follow probably private equity deals, and then you have also people looking to tokenize ETFs, and that's gonna happen. I saw a lot of those big banks saying, "Hey, for those that were in crypto before, providing custody, etc." They sort of froze those initiatives because of the uncertainty in terms of regulation. But as far as the tokenization, I think it's getting a good momentum now. Also, I think when you look around the world, Europe is driving the famous MiCA, marketing crypto assets regulation, which is very, very clear how to classify tokens, how to classify issuances, if it's secured or not, the taxonomy for asset-backed tokens, and what that would mean in terms of regulatory requirements. And I think this helps to give more guidance around the world. So that's why it's my optimism is there, despite of, again, the crypto markets is in the bottom cycle now. But every time the crypto was in a bottom cycle, there's innovation happening. Okay, there's innovation is happening. It doesn't stop from happening. So you see now this year has been a lot of momentum on layer 2 chains, or then you have all the bridges that's being released. A lot of people looking for zero knowledge proof. So there are a lot of innovation happening underneath our eyes, and that will be used somehow in the future, right? So that's why it's exciting, because if you see the market really not doing innovation or stopping, then that would be a problem. And to me, it's going to be a matter of time. I know it's a bit confusing, especially in the US, the regulatory framework. But that's going to happen. And it's going to happen once you have the first Bitcoin ETF approved, which I think it's narrowing down the chances of that happening is gonna happen sometime in the future, and that will open a lot of opportunities. So I think that's why the optimism. But when you look at Brazil, whoa, man, this is where everything is happening. It's a combination of CBDC, crypto regulation coming, right? Securities tokenization regulation coming, the CVM 175, which allows investment funds to allocate up to 10% of their portfolios into digital assets, crypto and other tokens. So it's converging. It's everything moving towards crypto tokenization ecosystem. And that's going to happen around the world. In some countries, there will be more opportunities than others. In some countries, like in the US now, I think there's more opportunity on tokenization than crypto, especially when we talk about banks, right, or financial institutions.
Got it. Well, Marcos, it's so great to have you on the show. Great to finally get you on here and pick your brains. It's been really helpful. I've learned a lot. Any final thoughts from you, and where can folks get in touch with you if they have more questions or want to learn more?
Yeah, well, reach me out. I generally use LinkedIn more often, so reach me out to my LinkedIn. My final thoughts is, this, and again, I 2 months ago I was in a conference, and I had the opportunity to ask a question for the governor of Central Bank of Brazil, Roberto Campos, and I just asked and say, hey, Roberto, you've been talking about that's, he made some comments publicly that's not about the Real Digital or the Drex. It's about the benefits that this will bring to a tokenized economy. Tokenized economy means, people being able to create tokens of real world assets and trade it, really inject funding into the economy and create new, employments and so on. So my view is that, my message actually for all of us is, well, don't lose the train, be part of this tokenized economy, and that will create a lot of opportunities for everyone, and again, I'm really glad to be part of it and to be helping is in a sense to shape up this new future. But that's what excites me a lot.
Amazing. Great note to end on here. Well, with that, Marcos, thanks so much for your time here. Great to have you on, and thanks everybody for listening, and we will see you next time.